I think the reason that his letters are functionally the primary place of stumbling is because his letters are half a conversation. All the other things are full disclosure. In other words, I'm writing to the dispersion out there. Peter says that, John says that, James says that. This is to those out there. This is what I want you to know. So it's a complete idea. Okay? Whereas Shaul is writing in response to what he was told was going on. And so we don't have the other letter. It may not have been a letter. It may have been a messenger just sent to tell him what was going on. Whatever it was. We only have his response. Now, I know this has never happened to you, so bear with me. You've never sat there while someone next to you was on the phone, in a conversation, and you jumped to a wrong conclusion about what was going on in that conversation, got all mad, and maybe started attacking, scolding the person on the phone, only to find out you misunderstood completely because you didn't hear the other side of the conversation. Anybody else like that? Shaul is demonstrating something you should all hopefully embrace and appreciate, is that before he appeals, before he corrects or changes or says anything instructive, he first encourages and says, there's a bunch of stuff that you're doing right, that you're headed in the right direction, etc. He wants to make sure he starts with the positive. Okay? We don't tend to do that. We go right up to people and right away we're hitting them with what we don't like, what's wrong, what's this, what's that, what complaint. I believe if Shaul was resurrected right now and walked into this room or into any congregation in the Messianic body and saw just how messed up and all the divisiveness and everything else that was going on, maybe not this room. You guys have been really unified all week. But just generally in the body, I think they'd end up putting him in a rubber room in a home, but he'd be mortally depressed. Because he'd be thinking, you really, guys? 2,000 years? Really? And you haven't come any further than this? Really? 2,000 years? Wouldn't you think that way if you were him? He's called those that you normally would not figure he'd call so that there's no boasting. Because some of you are thinking here going, my friend is so smart, so well studied, went through all of the seminaries and everything. They know the Bible back and forth. Surely they should understand this. Not unless he's called them. And they look at you and say, who are you to teach me? You didn't go to Bible school. You haven't been a pastor for 20 years. Anybody go through that? And you're going to show me something? Sit down, I'll show you something. But Paul's also making a case in this that he tells you through men. Anointed, appointed men. And then what happens, though, is that you then start to attach yourself to the man and not just realize he's simply the messenger. See, that's kind of what's the problem going on here, right? Is that Shaul is saying, yes, you are going to get this from men. He says, I came here to share you Messiah impaled and him resurrected, etc. I came to share with you that testimony of Yeshua. However, I wasn't doing that so that you would get all excited about me. I'm doing it because with my anointing and appointing, it's my role to reveal these things to those who have had their eyes open and their ears opened. Because for whatever reason, I don't know why, it doesn't say anywhere, he has not chosen just to spontaneously reveal it to everybody. I think even before there was a Halloween, the spirit of man already knew how to put on costumes. It wants to masquerade as the spirit of Elohim and then convince you you're listening to the other voice. It likes to play dress up and convince you you're listening to Elohim when you're listening to yourself, which is why you rational lie to yourself on a regular basis. Which is not enough because then you have to go find others to agree with you so that you feel like you're not just rational lying to yourself. Because after all, if others agree with me, then they must be seeing the same thing I am. Yeah, you're all listening to the same voices inside yourselves. Looking for justification to do what you want. Well, let's just use the sort of mainstream Christianity system of like, you don't know anything, you get all excited, you make an altar call. You make this altar call thing, right? You walk up and you, whatever. And when you've done that, all of a sudden, do you now know everything you should or shouldn't do? No. You don't know anything more than you knew 5 minutes ago, but you got excited about making some sort of commitment or something. And he's saying here basically the same thing. He's saying, look, you guys, I came to you, you got kind of excited about it. I wish you could have embraced a whole lot more of it, but you were still fleshly. You were still babes in Messiah. That's what it means by be babe in Messiah. You get it on enough level that you're starting to walk in that direction, but you're still more flesh than spirit. The point being that over time, we should be transforming to be more spirit than flesh. But each one should look how he builds on it. So he's saying, it's great that others build on the foundation, but you know what? First of all, you shouldn't just let anybody build on that foundation. And second of all, the guys who are doing building, understand you're building on the foundation. So if you're not building on Yeshua correctly on a foundation, what you're building is not going to stand. But really, Shaul is always talking about running the race to win the prize. Don't let anybody steal your crown. Yeshua says the same thing. You know, the very end of Revelation, it says, see, I am coming quickly, and my reward is with me. To reward each one according to what? His works. Oh, Rabbi, you're talking about salvation by works again. Again, I never talk about that. See, I love the way people say, oh, he's talking about salvation by works again. I have never once taught salvation by works. Salvation was made available to everyone at the same time for free, no matter what they did or didn't do, even before you were born. Because it was even before everybody was born, because he was the lamb slain even before the foundation of the world. But if we really want to be technical, it was once he was buried and resurrected, from that moment, everyone that ever lived now had that opportunity for salvation, even going back to the first person and forward to whoever the last person is before he returns. Okay, Hebrews 11 tells us all the heroes, right? But they're all before Yeshua died and was resurrected. So none of them are getting in. They're not saved. See how dumb that sounds? See, because we think linearly through time, right? We are born, we live a life, and then we die, and it goes forward through time. Well, what if you're one that's outside of time? Not restricted by time and space. Well, then his dying was going to happen, did happen, was always was a foregone conclusion, slain before the foundation of the earth. But it just doesn't matter in their plan when it happened. In other words, whether you were born before or after, as far as you're concerned, all that matters is that it happened. Everybody who comes out of the church system wants to blame Satan for everything. Yes, he is the deceiver of the brethren, but you know how he does it? He finds what you really want and convinces you that you can have it. And so you are very ready for that deception. It's not like he has a single deception that he goes around and convinces everybody. No, he's going to convince you something a little bit different than you, a little bit different than you, because he knows what it is you want is a little different than the other person. But ultimately, it's going to convince you to stay on that sovereign throne and make sure that you spin things so you get to have what you want. Sadly, what you really want is to get into the kingdom. The problem is you're going to blow it getting what you want right now. Now, of course, don't confuse, and I say this all the time, but I guess it just bears repeating and repeating. Don't confuse your 20 years as a Baptist or Methodist or Pentecostal and say that counts. It doesn't count. It makes you an exchange student, a foreign exchange student, because now you're like doing Torah as a second language. Okay? You know, like those ESL classes, right? English as a second language. Well, now you're studying Torah as a second language because you already speak Christian. And now you got to somehow translate through all of that mess. You want to know why we have strife, division? Because our hearts are not right. Our hearts are not right. And what do I mean by that? In this particular aspect of the heart not being right, it's not right in how we look at each other. There's a lot of heart issues makes it not right, which is why we do things we shouldn't do. In this case, we're talking about if your heart's not right, the way it's being talked about here, you're not looking at each other right. And so you can't treat each other right if you can't look at each other right. I mean, like through the right lens, through the right perspective.